One wrong move and it's ruined. But when it works, Candy Apple Red is pure magic, especially when it comes to nitrocellulose finishes. Here's how I did it at home with what I would consider to be pro level results that you can achieve yourself. Okay, so now it's on to painting the body. How are we going to get paint on it without getting it everywhere else? Well, I found this. It's an old curtain rail because we've just moved house not too long ago. And if my wife's watching this and you wanted this, I'm really sorry it snapped. I'm just going to take the curtain hooks out of it. Definitely not going to need them. God. Do you know when you know you should stop doing something and take a break because you're starting to be aggressive and like you just want to get it done, so you're aggressive and annoyed? That's kind of where I'm at. Right, so there's a screw in it already. I'm just going to hold it up to the middle of this and then screw it in. That's not going anywhere. I'll put another screw through it to hold it in place. Oh, that's fantastic. Now it's cracked. Brilliant. Well done, Joe. It's not going anywhere then. Maybe we'll put the other one in for good measure. What was I saying about getting aggressive and just rushing and going to break stuff? There we are. Right, so now I can handle this without touching the actual, without touching the guitar. All I've got to do is find a way of hooking that on something. That's where this comes in. So all I'm going to do is change out this this screwdriver drill bit for the Monty's drill that we used before. Take my cable tie off the end and then just drill a hole straight through the centre of this. Right, now, if I've marked the body in any way, it's a relic, so I'm just going to make that a feature. Now all we do is take some of our wire, so bad in it, so bad, and I'm going to make a loop out of it so I can hang it on stuff. So when it's drying, I can just hang it up via this loop. And I'm going to use a reef knot in this bad boy, back to my very early Navy days when he taught me how to do this. Not sure that's a recognised use of it. To join two bits of wire together, but there you go. And all this is going to allow me to do is I can manhandle it by the handle when I'm painting it, and then when I don't want to paint it, I can simply just hang it up by this and it'll hang up somewhere in the workshop. Right, so the goal with this is, firstly, not to spray paint the dog because my wife would kill me, but secondly, to keep the nozzle the same distance away from the work as you can all the way around, and do it in sweeping motions. I mean, if you've watched the pedal building video that I did, I kind of show how to spray paint, right? So here we go. And what you like to do is keep your finger pressed on the trigger until it's away from the work. Actually see that there's a piece, this is meant to be a one-piece body, but I can see this end bit here is actually not part of the same piece, but there you go. I would never have spotted that otherwise. That's the thing with the paint, it highlights every last little flaw in the work, which is why the sanding's so important. It's really hard to get all of it, but don't forget you can do a couple of coats, so you don't have to do it all in one go. And then the actual body of it, you just put it on before you get to the work and take it off after you get away from it. It's that simple. The idea is not to put too much on because you can always add a bit more. If you put too much on and it drips, there's no going back to it, you'd have to wait and sand, so, you know. And then again, I'm just going to go the opposite way round. You can see all the scratches on it from where I was sanding with the wrong grit and stuff, or where I've been sliding stuff over it. I was painting it, highlights everything. Almost seems a shame to hide this grain. I love it. Hopefully when I age it and bring some of it back out, we'll get to see it. Right, and that is it from the sanding sealer. And now we're on to one coat of the Easy Crack lacquer. Again, same thing. Start spraying when you're off the work, and then stop spraying when you're away from it. Oh, bees just flew past me. Yeah, can't stand them. Right, so here's our body with the grain filler on and the first coat of nitro lacquer. Nitro lacquer? No, nitro crack lacquer. And what we can see is, if I'm not throwing my sandpaper everywhere, I did have a few runs. There's one right here and then another one. Can I get that on camera? Oh, it's not quite showing up. There's another one just here. Anyway, it's not perfect. And it kind of feels rough as it does after the first two coats. So what I'm going to do is use my 400 grit sandpaper and I'm just going to go over it. Just very gently, just to remove that rough feel before I go ahead and add in the white primer. The very edges now, just around the ridge that needs doing. I'm not going to do that much because if you're going to sand through an area, it's going to be the end bits, like the corners. So I don't really want to do too much there because I don't want to sand through it. I'd rather just build up the paint on there first and then you can buff them areas up. But I think that's ready to go for a set of primer. Painted. So here's the state of affairs so far. My guitar is now red. It's had a clear coat on it, full disclosure. It's had one clear coat. I've chipped it a couple of times while I've been working on it. And that's because the layers of the nitro crack paint or whatever makes it really brittle. Hence you get lacquer checking and stuff. So that's one to be careful of. Got a couple of runs and a couple of areas that aren't great, if I'm honest. But that's fine because I'll just make them into chips. And there's also, I don't know if I can get it on camera there. See that little line over here? I just never sanded it properly. So there's a little step in it. Zooming out and taking a less myopic view are terrible. And I think, oh no, I've ruined my guitar. And then I think, I'm making a relic that's for me. So I'll just work it in there. Next bit is going to be clear coating and using the aged lacquer. And not to forget, it's Father's Day here in the UK. So while I'm building this guitar, look what come. I got lots of attire, a new t-shirt and stuff, and some strings from my 6-year-old daughter. She says, I dress like an old man. Cheers. I've actually put a few coats of tinted lacquer over this, paying particular attention to this sort of area and around the edge here, where we're going to add some wear onto it. I figure when we age it, the tinted lacquer will sand through and you get the brighter red underneath and it'll kind of look like real aging. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. If I'm perfectly honest, the prep work I did for this was terrible. There's marks all over it. I've dinged it, I've chipped it. But luckily enough, I love relics and it's going to be a relic. So don't need to worry about that. Not really. What I'm going to do now is I'm down to almost the last bit of paint that I've got, apart from my pedal paint. And I don't want to eat into that because I have, of course, got the Brighton Guitar Show coming up. So the plan is I'm going to give it a little sand on the main faces with 400 grit sandpaper. Or wet and dry, sorry. I keep saying sandpaper. And then 400 around the edges. And then I'm going to go all over it using 1500 silicone wet and dry paper. And I'm going to do the corner bits as well this time. And then tomorrow morning, because it's like 3 o'clock in the morning now, I will spray it all once more with clear and tinted lacquer together. Like a coat of each over and over. Maybe build up maybe 1 coat of tinted and 2 coats of clear on the top. And then 1 final sand to get rid of the orange peel. Quote unquote orange peel. If you can see that. And then we'll leave it. And we'll get aging once it's dry. And that'll be it for this. Areas of concern so far. As I said, I have indeed chipped the guitar a few times. There's a little chip here. And also I've got some drips here. What you should do is when you get a drip, stop the work. Let it dry for a couple of days, wet and dry, get rid of it, fine. But for me, all I'll do is I'll just make that an area where I age it. Put a ding there with my keys or whatever, chip the paint off, job's a good one. And I know people are going to hate that because people hate aged guitars, but I don't care, quite frankly. And as you can see, my mishap with the string, with the neck bolt holes is still there. I haven't filled them in. I am just going to put the neck plate over the top. And I'll know in my own head that I messed that up. Perfect. I give up sharpish on this contraption. This sand and block thing. It was terrible. Maybe that's good for walls. It's not good for guitars. I've moved instead to these. And I know these are meant to be like sanding pads to sand with this being the abrasive material. But all I'm doing is just wrapping this round it and giving it beans. You'll have to excuse me. I've got the hiccups and the flu. I'm absolutely dying. But I really do want to get this prepped for the Brighton Guitar Show, so I'm going to soldier... Oh, there's a hiccup. But I really do want to get this prepped for the Brighton Guitar Show, so I'm going to soldier on. I have sprayed quite a few coats of nitro lacquer, the crack lacquer on it. I've also sprayed lots of tinted lacquer coats and normal lacquer. We can see in some of the areas, like down here, and more crucially, right here, right... And more crucially, right here, I did chip the paintwork, and you can see where the aged lacquer has gone over the top. Now I made it turn orange instead of white, so that's that. We have, of course, still got our massive holes in the back where I messed up the Monty's neck system mount thing. Not the best advert for Monty's, just goes to show that it's not idiot proof. The documentation for it, however, was amazing. I just didn't read it. There's the first sand and pass on it, and dare I say, it's looking pretty good. I mean, there's some areas where I've messed up, obviously, as I've previously said, but on the whole, it's pretty flat. And to be fair, I'm going to trash this up relicing it anyway.
So what difference does it really make? The only thing, as ever, that I'm annoyed about, them bloody holes. I still can't believe it did that. Anywho, there's the neck on, ready to go. Next bit is going to be the pick guard. Well, this is a bit of a snug fit, if I remember rightly. It literally just about fits around the neck, which I suppose is what I want. I don't know if that's how a Telecaster's meant to be, like a snug fit or what, but there we are. Now I'm going to go ahead and get the screws in. One of these, I think these actually might be Stratocaster pickguard screws that I picked up off the website, but I can't actually remember. And this is going to be forever, so I need to make sure it's positioned right, because once it's on, it's on. And here's our bridge. So that's going to sit over the holes pre-drilled out for the strings, which is just about there somewhere. It's a bit strange to see this because it's actually starting to look like a guitar now, you know. Thinking about it, actually, am I putting this on a bit prematurely? Do I need to put the pickup in here? That's the point. So we've got on Monty's pickups. In fact, I'm going to leave the pickups off because I've got to strip it all down and sand it again, but I've never actually thought how the neck pickup attaches because, well, there you go, I just never have. So I'm going to have to fit that in, screw it down with the springs, and then fit the pick guard over the top of it. That's interesting. Now onto the bridge. Now to fit the bridge, I've kind of messed up. So I bought some bridge plate screws, which are these ones. You know, they're the Phillips head or the cross head with a little bit of a lacquer thread at the top, which I think is what was used in the 60s. But my bridge itself is a 50s bridge with a 50s serial number. Don't ask. I really wanted nickel and not chrome. Just think it looks better. And they come with these crosshead screws, which are obviously lesser than the Phillips. I think they are. But if we compare them, they're longer, slightly. And I haven't got any screws to screw down my control plate, unless I use pickguard screws to screw down my control plate. Now I don't know what size screws within the original, so I'm going to have to do a bit of research there. In fact we're going to fit the bridge plate now. Then we'll go on and fit our titanium saddles. That's interesting. So to fit the bridge plate, I'm going to drill some pilot holes. This'll do. All I'm going to do is mark out the centre of each of these holes. Okay, so this is really flat sanded now. We've got the bridge on, we've got the control plate, we've got our cherries on there, pick guard, the neck is on. It's feeling like a guitar now, which is great. Now I've started aging a little bit, creating some nicks and dents and a little bit of like lime wear. I mean, if you look at the drawing of red, if you look at the picture of red that I've got, you can see on the upper bout, there's some like real deep lacquer checking. I'm just going to get that started off a little bit, knock it down a bit with some sandpaper, and then we're going to do the hot and cold method. We'll be using some lighter fluid to do it with. Now, I'm copying Hugh Price, so he's one half of Tone Twins. Absolutely fantastic YouTube channel. If you don't follow them, you really should. So he did an article for guitar.com years ago, and he showed how to age a telly, like a safe green, I think it was. Anyway, and he shows how to get the lacquer checking going in the right direction on that video. What we're going to do is we're going to heat the top up, or heat the guitar up. I'm going to do the front first with all of this stuff attached, so then things move at different speeds, which is what gives us the cracking. Now, I'm going to heat the top up, and instead of spraying all over the shop. Shh, that doesn't create any good good effect. What you get is like a cracking rather than checking. What I'm going to do is hold it, he says approximately 30 centimetres away. So we're talking a ruler's length away, right? Which isn't going to be much good with my camera there, but we're going to have a go at it. And what we do is we heat up the guitar, but we go with the grain when we're spraying the cold, because what happens is if we go this way, the lacquer cools down at a different rate and splits this way to get away from the obvious change in temperature. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We have to add some dings and stuff to it, because if we add some dings to it, lacquer checking kind of forms from all of these little dings, or some of them, and then what happens is we do a few more dings, a bit more lacquer checking, and it kind of builds up that effect like a real guitar getting aged, i.e. it doesn't all check at once after it's been beat up. It kind of happens gradually, so we'll beat it up a bit of lacquer checking, beat it up a bit more, bit of lacquer checking. So the first thing for beating it up, I'm just using some random tools I've got around the place. I'm using this little flat part of my auto punch. I'm just going to add some very light, I mean, you're probably not even going to see any of this on there, but it makes tiny little indents in the guitar that you get on there, just over wear and tear, over use. And I'm just going to do quite a bit of that, because the lacquer checking will probably form from these points. Okay, and I'm going to do it with different tools, because obviously if you bang your guitar, you don't bang it all on the one thing. Okay, so now we've dinged it up a little bit. You're probably not going to see any of them dings sort of it. I mean, maybe there's a few that have really come through, but not really, because they're quite light and subtle. Also, what I'm going to do is try and wear away the lacquer where my arm would be over the top. So if I'm sat with the guitar like this, my arm's going to be kind of here, because I like to rest it on the bridge there. And I think Dan does too, because if you look at a picture of Red, you can see that there's like a dark patch here. I'm guessing that's where he anchors his hand. And to be fair, I've been watching Dan play for years, so he does tend to sometimes put his hand there, and yeah, the wear on the guitar suggests it. Same thing I do. So what I'm going to do is just put my hand there and then see where my elbow crosses from the seated position and then from the standing position. It's kind of this area here. And all I'm doing is I'm using my cylindrical metal object. It could be anything. You could use, you know, something like this. And I'm just going to rub it along there until I get through the lacquer and there's like, get down to the wood a bit. Then I'm going to use both my dentist pick type tool and my scalpel to like flick off bits of the lacquer, because no guitar ever anywhere that's aged, right, is ever aged by, you know, a perfect sanded area. It just doesn't work like that. Here is like the benchmark. Now this here, this is a massively aged area, but it's not like sanded in. You can see it's kind of rough, like there's bits flicked off, and then the bits that have been flicked off have kind of been over time rubbed through. Do you know what I mean? So it's like a hard edge, and then the top of the lacquer that's on the hard edge has been rubbed through. I mean, this is an extreme case, because this has probably been through the ringer. But you can see it's the same all over the place. And the lacquer checking kind of comes from all the little dinks. You could probably, like, chronograph from start to finish what happened first, the lacquer checking or the dings. And then, you know, more dings, more lacquer checking. It's really interesting. But that's what I'm going for anyway. I don't want it to be like a sanded edge. What I want is, I want to get through the paint by giving it a rub. And once I'm through the paint, I'm just going to flick bits off to get the area that I want, with still the paint being a step. Then I'm going to use some wet and dry and buff it and try and get this sort of effect here. I mean, I'm kind of using my favourite guitar as a template for what I'm going to do to this guitar. Although this isn't going to be as aged, to be fair. That's nothing to do with the fact that Dan's guitar is not aged. It's just my Gold Top's really aged, my vintage Gibson's really aged, and this one's going to be kind of like an in-between type thing. So, first things first, let's just get through this a bit. And I tell you what might work, a flat edge of this a bit better. So you get the idea. This is kind of what I'm going to be doing all the way through it. But in steady intervals, I'm going to give it a few more dings. But in steady intervals, what I am going to do is do the hot and cold method, which is what we're going to do right now. Let's get a bit of belt rash around here. Maybe with this. Not bad. Maybe with this too. Anyone who's watched this channel for a while will know that I do things to the extreme. I get obsessed. I don't do things small. If I'm going to put in components in a pedal, I'm going to use massive components. Why not? Look at the size of our FakeRed Rangemasters today. They're huge. However, when it comes to relicing, this is the one area where less is more. One bit of feedback that I got about this guitar at the Brighton Guitar Show was that my relicing wasn't over the top. It looked authentic. It looked not particularly real, because who knows what a real 63 Telecaster looks like? Not me, I can't afford that. But it looked authentic and it looked like it was tastefully done, was what most people said. So when it comes to relicing, just remember, you can always add a little more, but you can't take it back. Not unless you're prepared to strip and finish the guitar again. Right, I've heated the top up, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to start this end, come this way, going across the grain in sweeping motions, trying to keep it away from the guitar as much as possible to avoid the cracking effect. You can actually see the grain lines coming through. There is a few lacquer checking bits coming up the top here, I can see, but again, I think this is going to be a gradual thing. So back to the heat we go. I think this might be like a gradual, it happens over a couple of passes type thing. I mean, I can see from the angle that I'm at now, they're starting to have lacquer checking lines forming, which is always good. Let's give the back a go. And the lacquer lines, the checking lines are starting to appear, and they are indeed going in the direction that I want them to. Thankfully. I'm going to go ahead and just repeat this process. A couple more dings and stuff up there, and I'll get to a point where I'm happy with the amount of checking I've got, remembering that there's going to be more checking added along the way as it ages naturally. So you don't want to go too over the top, because nitro's like a living, breathing thing, if you like. And then I'm going to focus on removing some material around here where my belt buckle rash will be, and some around these ferrule holes. And then also on the top, I'm going to focus on the top edge here and round this bottom bit here, and maybe a little bit here, but mostly that's going to be just gentle wear. So what do I mean about using the scalpel to get in there and peel off some of this paint so it looks like wear? Well, if you look here, we can see that there's really a hard stepped edge between the lacquer and the actual wood. Now the wood's not worn at all. It's not like I've dug the scalpel into the wood, not the case. What I'm doing is I'm just gently positioning the scalpel underneath the paintwork. And then we're just flicking the paintwork off. See that? It's going right underneath. And I'm just flicking the paintwork off. This is super hard to do. You have to really concentrate to not dig into the wood. And the reason for this, and this is what I'm going to achieve on this top edge and everywhere basically, The reason for this is because it gives you a stepped edge on the paint, and then when I go over this with wet and dry and really break that down, you're going to see like a slow transition to the wood, and it's kind of it looks a bit stepped edge, but what you're going to see is you're going to see the red wear away, then you'll see the silver, then you'll see the white undercoat, and then the wood, which is a cool effect, I think. The question is, how much is enough and not going too over the top? I'm going to go to about this sort of size here for this bit, and then I'm going to do the same around both the top where the armrest is and also round about the centre upper of the pick guard, just above there where like your pick strikes the strings, around that area. So you just slide the blade underneath the paint and just lift it off. I mean, I suppose what you could do is just get a belt buckle and rub it on the back here, or even put it on your belt and rub it on the back. I know there's going to be someone who comments saying, oh, just play the guitar and you'll get all the way. I don't gig, and I don't play guitar that much because I'm busy. If I play guitar, I'm thinking to myself the whole time I'm playing, why aren't I building pedals or making a YouTube video or doing something else creative in that way? I appreciate that there are amazing people who can play their guitars to death and get them to relic and do things the proper way and play live and all that, but I'm just not one of them. What I can give the guitar community is pedals, and so I to that end I don't really have time to like play a guitar till it's relicked, but I do want to own an aged guitar, so why not age it yourself? I don't see what the harm is, and I know a lot of people are going to comment saying I've ruined this guitar and all this jazz. Please feel free to say that if that's your opinion, but whatever makes you enjoy the guitar is good in my mind, whether that's an offensive sticker or something like that. I mean, really doesn't matter as long as you pick up the guitar, right? Right, so I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm also going to keep hitting it every now and again with some of the old clipper lighter fluid. Get in. And that's the finish done. Next we get to assemble the guitar and wire it up and have a sound sample. In the sound sample we'll be comparing FakeRed up against my 77 Strat.